Great. So we are Jay and Maureen Richards. We are actually having some remodeling work done in our homes. We have some tradesmen in the house, so we apologize if you hear banging and hammering and saws buzzing in the background. We've got a couple of closed doors in between us and them, and hopefully that'll dampen most of it.
Any of them want to be missionaries to go out with their managers? Okay.
We'll ask. We'll figure that out. I haven't had a haircut since before COVID, so I think I've been the shaggiest I've been since junior high school, so I apologize for that. So we live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We've been here for about 27 years now. We will celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary next month. We have 3 grown children. Our two oldest are married. We have 6 grandchildren. They're all dispersed between Grand Rapids, Kansas City, and Denver. Both Maureen and I are prior military. We served on active duty for several years and then served in the reserves. A total of 52 years in uniform between the two of us. Several years in Panama, several years in Alaska, and 3 years in San Antonio, where I got a MBA from the University of Texas in San Antonio. We became aware of Rafiki through our association with the Bible Study Fellowship in the 90s and early part of the new millennium. So we've been kind of keeping track of Rafiki and what Rafiki has been up to ever since then. And then I think Maureen is going to talk a little bit more about how we ended up in this conference call today. We belong to a church here in Grand Rapids, Calvary Church. It's a fairly large Bible-believing church. We've been in several aspects of ministry over the years with that church, to include currently facilitating a small Bible study group. And our most probably time-consuming ministry that we're involved in is a prison ministry through Prison Fellowship. We became affiliated with Prison Fellowship through the Colson Center for Christian Worldview, of which both Maureen and I are fellows. And we have, for the last 6 years, taught a reading and writing class based on biblical worldview at a local state prison. We've seen some great things there, really got to know and love the guys there, and they love us back. And we've seen some transformations of hearts and minds. I think we probably had about 130 or so men over those 6 years that have been in our class, some of our classes. And we just really enjoy that and see the Lord moving in that, and pretty excited about that. That would be probably one of the down points of becoming a Rafiki missionary, is turning over our prison ministry to someone else. But the Lord is in all of that. I have kind of an eclectic background. For me, I have a bachelor's degree in liberal arts and then an MBA. I have served different corporations as an internal auditor, as a production project manager in IT, in an accounting firm. I've been a bank analyst and a bank team manager, and just recently retired from a company that does restoration projects for people that have damage from floods and fires and tornadoes and that type of thing. I think that's probably it for me. And Maureen, you want to talk about your background?
Yeah, after the military, I stayed home with my kids for many years, involved in cross country and whatever else was going on at school. Not happy with what the education was that my kids were getting at classical Christian school, wanting more access to the kids on the cross country team. So I went and got my master's degree with teaching certification. And within the first couple weeks, I realized what I was learning was nonsense. And so I bumped into The Lost Tools of Learning by Dorothy Sayers, and everything is in the rearview window since then. And so I really fell into classical, and I spent my 2.5 years in graduate school arguing against everything I was learning. And so consequently, I probably got one of the best classical educations you could get, because I was using what I was learning and saying, why wouldn't this work? And one of the things that was really interesting about that was I learned that because I could write, I could say whatever I wanted to say, because I could do it well. And then they started asking for copies of my papers, as opposed to a lot of times in education where you have to bow to the professor. And I vowed at that time that I would teach my students how to write so that they were never held hostage by their professors. And so consequently, that's been my mission for the last 18, 19 years. I've taught in classical schools, everything from 11th and 12th grade English and rhetoric to now I teach 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th literature, composition, and grammar. And my students at the end of the grade will enroll in university in their classics program and do the dual enrollment and actually be able to compete in the English classes without any problems at the college level, which is a good thing. I'm one of 13 Institute for Excellence in Writing instructors at the accomplished level in the country. And what we did in prison is we did the same thing with the men, and we've got the only certified writing instructor in the country who happens to be in prison, and we actually have 8 other registered IEW writing instructors who happen to be in prison, and nowhere else in the country do they have prisoners that are writing instructors, and they're actually teaching the men. And I hate to say it, they're better writing instructors now than what I am. And so they actually stand on our shoulders in terms of writing. So my passion for Rafiki really began when I started my teaching, and I said, I've got to learn enough to be able to go without taking any books, because at the time they didn't have computers and flash drives and stuff like that. And so that's what I've been doing. And just within the last couple of years, it's been God's been saying, it's time, it's time, it's time. And so Kieran said, yeah, it's time. And at a teaching conference last year, and had it been this year, Karen, we never would have met since everything was canceled. So, and that's where we're going. And our kids don't need us so much anymore. And our boat does, but we'll have to leave that behind.
I think one of the things that Maureen didn't mention was that these certified instructors in prison that have come along and walked alongside of us now, all of them, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, but I believe every one of them is either a graduate of or currently enrolled in the Urban Ministry Institute, which is an in-prison 4-year seminary program. So they're being equipped to become pastors and ministers, as well as being able to teach biblical worldview through reading and writing.